Edvina Fernando had a gift. Unfortunately, it was the kind of gift that came wrapped in warning labels, disciplinary notice, and financial deductions. She was a civil intern at CATCO, the Civil Armed Technologies Consortium, a global organization so powerful and so rare that most governments spoke its name like a prayer, and a threat in the same breath. CATCO was the only institution in the world where civilian intellect and military forces officially coexisted. They designed crisis response systems, planetary security solutions, experimental aircraft, battlefield medical tech, disaster control AI, and weapons that never supposed to be used but always ready. Edvina worked in the Defense and Security Division, inside the Security Weapons Zone, which was a terrible place for someone who routinely forgot where she left her access badge, and once she tried to unlock a blast door with her coffee card. She was brilliant, undeniably so. Her mind jumped 3 steps ahead of everyone else's. She spotted flaws others missed. She could improvise under pressure like it was a sport. She was also, without question, a trouble magnet. At 4 months into her internship, Edvina was already had a reputation. Not for incompetence, never that, but for chaos. Things happen around her. Expensive things, loud things, things that required meetings afterward. Because she was a civilian officer, she didn't receive military punishment. No extra drills, no isolation training, no overnight bunker shift. Instead, CATCO deducted her salary, which was unfortunate because she was still paying off the jet. The jet incident had been her fault, and also not her fault, and also absolutely her fault. During a prototype test flight, she noticed a critical instability in the thrust alignment system seconds after takeoff. The pilot was already airborne. Protocol demanded observation. Edvina demanded survival. She had overridden authorization, triggered the emergency destruction sequence, and blown the aircraft apart before it could fail catastrophically. The pilot lived, but the jet did not. The cost of the prototype was now being politely, mercilessly subtracted from Edvina's monthly income. She had started measuring her meals in terms of financial regret, which was why, on this particular week, she was almost happy. The latest project sat on the lab table, glowing softly under starlight lights. The super sticky chewing-gum shooters. Non-lethal, high adhesion, 0 permanent damage, bright pink. The compact launcher fired tiny spherical gum marbles that expand explosively when exposed to water, trapping targets in an elastic adhesive mass strong enough to immobilize without injury. It was designed for urban chases, civilian heavy environments, and situations where bullets were a legal nightmare. It was ridiculous. It was genius. And Edvina had already started developing a vacuum neutralization compound to clean the mess afterward. Still experimental, still unstable, but promising. Director Dave had loved it. He had leaned over the table, stared at the pink gum mass stuck on a reinforced wall panel, and said, "This is the least violent thing I have seen here all week," his tone carrying faint amusement, which, coming from him, was a praise. The gum shooter was approved for limited operational testing. Edvina celebrated by buying the cheapest coffee in the building and pretending it tasted like victory. Frank Calder, hugged his mother like he wasn't sure when he would be allowed to do it again. She was shorter than him now, which annoyed her deeply. Her grip was strong, her voice sharper than necessary. "You eat properly," she said. "Not protein bars, real food." "I will," Frank replied. "And you call me," she added, narrowing her eyes. "I will," he said again. "And if they yell at you," she began, frowning. "They won't," Frank said quickly, smiling despite himself. She pulled back and looked at him hard. "They're cat-co. They yell," she warned. Frank just smiled. The Catco facility didn't look like a building. It looked like a future had landed and decided to stay. The steel and glass curved into impossible geometries. Surfaces layered with holographic security fields, drones gliding soundlessly overhead. Frank's pulse skipped as he entered the recruit intake bunker, where dozens of new candidates stood clustered together. There was Mateo, tall and grinning, already making friends. Aisha, calm-eyed and observant, saying very little. June, compact, nervous, hands always moving. And Lena, unimpressed by everything, including authority. The bond instantly through shared anxiety. The officer assigned to guide them never arrived. Instead, Director Dave appeared, scrolling at his tablet. Then he spotted Edwina. She was standing near his office door, juggling a datapad, a coffee cup, and 3 pens, muttering under her breath. "Fernando," Dave said sharply. She startled. The pens dropped. "Yes, sir," she stammered. "You're giving the tour," he said flatly. Her face went blank. "I'm what?" she asked. "Guide's unavailable. You're here," he clarified. "I'm not," she began, but he cut her off. "I'll give you a lift home," he added. She froze. "I accept," she said finally. And just like that, Edvina became the least qualified tour guide in Catco history. She led the recruits through corridors humming with energy, labs alive with floating displays, weapons sealed behind biometric locks. "This is the tactical simulation hall," she said, raising a hand. "Do not touch anything unless you want to explain yourself to the tribunal." Mateo laughed. "She's funny," he said to June, nudged him. "I'm serious," Edwina added, frowning. They reached a weapon testing lab. Edwina pointed proudly at a tray of tiny pink spears. "These are non-lethal containment rounds," she said. "They expand when exposed to water and immobilize targets. Very effective, very sticky." June squinted. "They look harmless," he muttered. "They're not," Edwina said cheerfully. Her wrist buzzed. She glanced down. An incoming call. "Dead." Don't touch anything," she said quickly. I'll be right back." She left the gumshoe on the table, unloaded with water. Completely safe, she thought. The recruits stared at it. Mateo tiddled his head. "Just holding isn't touching," he said, and click. A gum marble fired and bounced across the floor. Nothing happened. Silence. "Again," Lena suggested. Pink marbles scattered everywhere. Someone aimed too high, the fire alarm shattered. The sprinklers activated, and the gum came alive. When Edwina returned, the lab was a pink apocalypse. A sticky mass bloomed across the walls and floors. Woods stuck, arms glued. June was attached to a console. Mateo was attached to June. Edwina stared. "Oh no," she whispered, her voice tight. Somewhere, Director Dave was about to breathe fire and Edwina couldn't afford even air. She stood very still. That was always her first response to catastrophe. Freeze, observe, calculate the exact numbers of ways her life was about to get worse. The lab looked like a candy-colored crime scene. Pink adhesive clonched walls in thick, glossy sheets. The floor had become a trap. One record was glued sideways on a storage cabinet, feet dangling unusually. Another was half sitting, half fused to the ground, blinking rapidly as if excessive blinking might somehow undo physics. Water continued to drip from the ruined sprinkler head. Every drop made the gum swell. "Don't," Edwina said faintly as one rookie instinctively tried to pull his arm free. He pulled anyway. The gum pulled back. They both lost. Edwina closed her eyes for exactly 3 seconds. Long enough to panic, short enough to remain employed. Maybe. "Okay," she said, clapping once. "Nobody move. Movement is a privilege now." Frank, who had managed to remain unstuck by sheer luck and terror, raised a trembling hand. "Ma'am?" he asked quietly. "Yes, unglued citizen," Edwina said, trying to sound calm. "Are we in trouble?" he whispered. Edwina laughed, though it was come out the wrong way, a little hysterical. "Oh, absolutely," she said. She tapped her wrist console. No vacuum solution, still unstable. Even if it worked, it wasn't rated for this much mass. Director Dave would be on his way. He could sense disasters. The man had instincts, like a bloodhound with a budget. Edwina's brain sprinted. Water activates gum. Heat would make it worse. Solvents would damage the lab. Mechanical force alone would tear skin. So, freeze it. Her eyes winded. Oh no. "Oh yes," she muttered. She spun toward the door and bolted. The Arctic Division was 3 levels down. Edwina skid through the corridor, badge barely registering as doors hissed open. "Mac!" she yelled. A head popped up from behind a weapons bench. Mac Chen, intern, weapons enthusiast, certified chaos germlin, blinked behind his goggles. He was small, sharp-eyed, and smiling like this was already the best day of his life. "Edwina," he said happily. "You're either about to save the day or make it much worse." "I need a liquid nitrogen shooter," she said urgently. His smile grew. "How much time do we have?" "Negative time," she said. "I love pressure," Mac replied cheerfully. Within minutes, they were assembling a prototype. Compressed nitrogen canisters, reinforced tubing, a modified dispersal nozzle. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't approved, it was perfect. Back in the lab, the rookies had entered the bragging phase of disaster. "I'll never touch anything again," someone said miserably. "I'll switch departments," another muttered. "I'll join accounting," a third added. Then the doors slid open and cold rolled like judgment. Edwina marched in carrying the shooter. Mark followed, grinning. "What's that?" Frank asked, his voice trembling. "Salvation," Edwina replied. "And possibly frostbite. Don't worry about it." She aimed. "Everyone hold very, very still," she ordered. She fired. The white cloud burst across the nearest gum mass. The pink surface frosted over instantly, cracking like sugar glass. Edwina's breath caught. "It worked," she muttered. Mac whooped. "Yes," he yelled. They moved fast, freezing sections of gum and carefully breaking them apart with hammers borrowed from damage control. The gum shattered cleanly, peeling away from surfaces without tearing fabric or skin. The recruits watched in awe as Edvina directed the operation, breaking instructions and adjusting angles. Frank realized something then. She wasn't chaotic. She was adaptive. By the time Director Dave arrived, half the lab was already cleared. He took in the scene, the frozen gum shards, the rookie hammering under supervision, Edwina standing center frame with frost on her sleeves and determination on her face. He exhaled slowly. "Report," he said. "Human error. My responsibility. Immediate mitigation in progress. No injuries. The structural damage minimal," Edwina replied. Dave looked at the pink debris. "Is that chewing gum?" he asked incredulously. "Yes, sir," Edwina said. He stared at her for a long moment, then he said, "Finish cleanup. Meeting in 2 hours," and walked away. Edwina nearly collapsed. Cleanup took the rest of the day. The rookies were not allowed to leave. They scrubbed, lifted, sorted, and learned the true meaning of consequence. Somewhere between scraping gum off a reinforced pillar and hauling frozen chunks into disposal units, the mood shifted. Edwina told stories about accidentally locking myself in pressure chamber on the day 3, she said, smiling wildly. About the jet, about how my family thought I was insane for refusing their money. "My parents are very comfortable," she admitted, wiping pink received from her hands. "Multiple homes, too many options. I wanted this on my own." Frank glanced at her. "You could have just paid for the jet," he asked. "Yes," she said, "but then I wouldn't deserve to be here." That stayed with him. 2 days later, the directors' review meeting convened. Executives, military leads, research heads. Edwina stood at the edge of the room, hands collapsed, stomach empty. The presentation played footage of the gum shooter in action, then the accident, then the frozen cleanup. "The incident," Director Dave said, "revealed the flaw." Edwina braced herself. "And an improvement," the room murmured. The addition of rapid freeze neutralization methods significantly reduced cleanup time and collateral damage, Dave continued. The updated vacuum solution, finalized afterward, completes the system. He turned. "Project approved. Commended." Applause filled the room. Edwina blinked. She smiled weakly. That evening, she sat alone in the cafeteria with a cup of coffee. No cookie. She checked her account. Still broke. She laughed softly. Somewhere in the facility, new recruits trained with pink gum shooters. Carefully. And Edvina, trouble magnet, genius intern, sat quietly knowing one thing for certain. Tomorrow would be worse. And she'd handle it anyway.